Hi, and welcome to this video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about what's after HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you go on a web page, you, or at least the ones you've probably coded so far, you've used HTML, the classic H1s, Ps, image, video, and then you also have some CSS and JavaScript to help out with that. But this is a little bit restricting, and though HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are super powerful tools, it doesn't solve everything. Additionally, having variables is extremely difficult because you have to pass them between JavaScript, HTML, and that's just super difficult. So, if you want to advance your skills beyond HTML, first I would recommend React.js. React.js contains like the same basic elements. It uses the same principles as HTML by using tags such as text and views and divs and H1s and all of those classic tags. However, you're allowed to integrate JavaScript right into the code. So for example, if you have an H1 here and you're like, I have blank vegetables, H1, and let's say you have a variable var veggie equal to 2, then you can actually just put veg into here with some parentheses. So this makes it super simple because instead of doing like that inner HTML, you can just put this variable name right over here. And this saves a lot of time when it comes to building those web pages. Next up, we have TypeScript. And TypeScript integrates types, as you can probably tell from the title. So this has no types. So if you were to have, let's say, a form, and one of the questions is what is the name of the, or how many pets do you have? Number of pets. They can input a string, and you probably would use the input to make sure that they don't. But maybe that doesn't work, or maybe there's some sort of hack, or maybe there might just be some sort of difficulty. But React can't catch if you pass in a string or an integer, it'll just throw an error. But TypeScript allows you to have a distinct type so that you know exactly what you're dealing with in each method. And this just makes it more error proof. And of course, you can use these two together. A little bit from the other side, we can also use something called next.js. And next.js is a little bit different than what we've been talking about. So if you use, let's say, a backend, and we haven't talked about that yet, so let me explain that real quick. So you have something called a front end, and this is what the client sees. And then you have something called a backend. And this is where you perform different tasks. So this is probably where you'd access a database or process their value, what the user inputs. So typically right now we're talking about these as front-end languages. If you want to integrate a backend, you would, for example, use Node.js. And Node.js allows you to, instead of having inside your inside your URL index.html, you can change that to like /home or something like that. So that's one of the functionalities of Node.js. You can also use it to integrate to databases such as MongoDB, Firebase, and more. But sometimes that integration can be a little bit hard, or maybe you don't want, you only want these slashes. You don't really need much more than that. Or sometimes you want to pull data from, for example, let's say from an Excel sheet, but the problem with Node.js is that it sends the data after the website has been rendered. So for example, if you have an Excel sheet and it has a number of, let's say, hours, and you want to display that on your website, you can try to display this on your website using Node.js, but what it's going to do is it's going to put hours on the website so they can see that, and then it'll put the number because it renders the website, then it pulls the data, so then it would run the Excel, and then it'll put the data on the website. And that's sometimes not what you want. Sometimes you want it to be directly on the website. And that's where Next.js comes in. Next.js is basically an integration of React and Node.js together, where you can have these slash like home slash about, and you can also pull data. But the thing about Next.js is that it'll pull data before it renders the website. So that means that it'll be there when the user clicks on the website. Now that we've talked about like these front-end and back-end languages, let's talk about CSS. Now in CSS, let's say you have a div, you have an h1 hi, you have another h1 hello, and you have a slash div here. Now let's say that you want to style all the h1s inside the div. Now you'd probably do div h1 and something like that. But every single time you want to style something in div, you have to create a new one for that, kind of like this. But there is another alternative to CSS, and this is called SCSS. And this is in a family of other alternative CSS, but I'm talking about this one. You can explore the other ones if you'd like. So in SCSS, what you can do is that you can have a div, kind of like this, and you can put like div styles here, and then you can put an h1 inside the div. So every h1 inside the div will have these properties, and you can do as many nesting as you want. And this is just one of the many features of SCSS. You can also use variables, and those are just two of the basic features, but SCSS allows you to have a lot more condensed code, it's more efficient, and SCSS basically gives you more functionality. So overall, I've talked about front-end languages, back-end languages, and also alternatives to SCSS. So I hope this video allows you to visualize what you can do after HTML. And it's not just these languages, but there's many more that you can do, such as you can start learning Docker if you're interested in that. But there's a lot more beyond HTML, and I hope this video gives you an understanding of everything you can learn.